In today's video, we'll once again dive into the mid-2010s and look at the Nephthys archetype, one of Konami's attempts at making rituals playable. We'll look at the engine and how the deck did, or in this case didn't work, and why it failed in the TCG. It all started with Hidden Summoners, a lackluster pack that came out in 2018. If you've seen our videos about the failed ritual archetypes, most of them made their way to us in the 2010s, as Konami was trying to make long-time summoning mechanics viable and consistent. After fixing up the mess that was fusion summoning with archetypes like Shaddolls and Hero, they began to work on rituals. Needless to say, there's a reason why so many place Necros to this day as the most successful ritual deck, as most of them that came after flopped hard in the TCG. Nephthys falls into the latter. The deck plays homage to the original Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys, who debuted back in Flames of Eternity in 2005. This level 8 fire wing beast had 2400 attack and 1600 defense, and when it's destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, once per turn during your next standby phase, you can special summon this card from the graveyard, and if you do, destroy all spell and trap cards on the field. It even had a helping hand in a monster appropriately named Hand of Nephthys, which lets you tribute it and one other monster on the field to summon Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys from your hand or deck. This card was at its peak in 2005. While classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Admonished summoning high-level monsters due to the cost of summoning them, Nephthys never had that problem thanks to Hand being printed alongside it. Hand being a level 2 made it easy to place on the field thanks to monsters like Marauding Captain or Apprentice Magician, who could summon Hand through their special summoning effects. The requirements to summon Phoenix were easily fulfilled since you can get 2 monsters on the field with no effort. This card proved problematic on the field. Though we regularly say that it's terrible to play cards that depend on your opponent destroying your cards, Classic/GOAT format had a plethora of spell and traps that players would commonly play that would only destroy boards, in which case Sacred Phoenix thrived. So while there were cards that could make its life hell, like Haiku and Chaos Sorcerer, its revival effect was perfect in a format filled with destruction cards, like Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, and Torrential Tribute. Even Solemn Judgment couldn't stop this card from rising from the ashes, as the effect only requires for it to be destroyed, whether you negated summon or not, which just puts more pressure on your opponent to play around it, or risk losing all their back row. This card even appeared on the limited list in 2005 and again in 2006 before being given its release papers in 2007. It's safe to say its glory days have passed, and it only sees play in Duel Links in certain Fire King decks in its archetype. The entire archetype primarily operates during the standby phase and retains the destruction and graveyard effects similar to the original Nephthys. It also sadly holds the unplayable part. Regardless, Hidden Summoners introduced the archetype to the world, holding the majority of their support with 11 cards being introduced. This doesn't include indirect Nephthys named cards like Metaphys Nephthys, Dark Nephthys, Chaos Nephthys, who support other archetypes, being Chaos and Metaphys. The non-ritual Nephthys shares the same level and attribute as Disciple, with all of them being level 2 when attribute monsters. Chronicler of the Nephthys was a spellcaster with 300 attack and 1200 defense. And once per turn, you could target 1 Nephthys card in your graveyard, except Chronicler, to destroy 1 card in your hand. And if you do, add that target to your hand. During the next standby phase, after this card was destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you could add 1 Nephthys card from your graveyard to your hand, except Chronicler. Defender of Nephthys is another spellcaster with 1400 attack and 200 defense. During your main phase, you can destroy 1 card in your hand. And if you do, special summon a level 4 or lower Nephthys monster from your hand, except Defender. During your next standby phase, after this card was destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can destroy 1 Nephthys monster in your deck, except Defender. Matriarch of Nephthys continues this path of level 2 spellcasters, having 600 attack and defense. You can target 1 level 4 or lower Nephthys monster in your graveyard, except Matriarch, to destroy 1 card in your hand. If you do, special summon the targeted monster in defense position, but its effects are negated. During your next standby phase, after this card was destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your graveyard on a hard once per turn. Disciple of Nephthys is the final non-ritual level 2 monster. It is, you guessed it, a spellcaster, coming in with 0 attack and 2000 defense. During your main phase, you can destroy 1 card in your hand. And if you do, add a Nephthys monster from your deck to your hand, except Disciple. During your next standby phase, after this card destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Nephthys spell trap from your deck to your hand for its hard once per turn effect. These monsters were used as the resources to summon your 2 ritual monsters, which all could be ritual summoned using Rebirth of Nephthys. which we'll come back to later in the video. Devotee of Nephthys was a level 2 wind spellcaster with 1200 attack and defense. It had 2 effects you could use once per turn. When ritual summoned, special summon 1 Nephthys monster from your deck. Then, during the end phase of the turn, destroy this card. If this card is in your graveyard, you can destroy 1 Nephthys card in your hand. If you do, special summon this card. The final ritual was Cerulean Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys, a level 8 fire winged beast with 3000 attack and 1000 defense. You can use the following effects of Cerulean once per turn. During your main phase, you can destroy Nephthys cards in your hand and or face-up field, then destroy an equal number of monsters your opponent controls. During the next standby phase, after this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the grave, you can special summon it from the graveyard. The ritual spell that makes all of this accessible is Rebirth of Nephthys, which can be used to ritual summon any Nephthys ritual monster. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. Then, if you tribute a Devotee of Nephthys or Cerulean Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys, you can destroy 1 card of the field. Nephthys also has another uniqueness featuring link monsters in its archetype. Nephthys, this Sacred Preserver, was a Link 2 Firewing Beast with 1200 attack, requiring 2 Nephthys monsters to make. The following effects of the Sacred Preserver can only be used once per turn. During your main phase, if this card was Link summoned, you can activate one of its effects, or you can either add a level 8 Wing Beast monster from your deck to your hand, you can add 1 ritual spell from your graveyard to your hand, or destroy 1 Nephthys monster this card points to, and special summon 1 Nephthys monster with a different original name from your graveyard with its effects negated. Nephthys' Sacred Flame is their final monster, being a Link 3 Firewing Beast with 2400 attack, needing 2+ monsters, including a ritual. While it's in the extra monster zone, monsters your opponent controls cannot target Nephthys monsters in the main monster zones for attacks. This card gains effects based on the number of ritual monsters used for its Link summon. If 1 or more, it can't be destroyed by battle. If 2 or more, it can't be destroyed by card effects and gains 1200 attack. If 3, neither player can target this card with card effects, and it also gains 1200 more attack. If there was anything to be pleased about, it was that the deck had solid synergy. The main deck monsters pop cards in your hand to gain effects when destroyed and sent to the graveyard. Meanwhile, you would earn more effects during your standby phase by destroying the Nephthys cards in your hand to generate card advantage. The rituals also help the cycle. Devotee cheats out monsters from your deck while letting you pop it, and revive it by popping a Nephthys card in your hand. And Cerulean has a solid removal effect in recursion. Even the ritual gave you an extra pop when tributing Devotee or Cerulean. Sadly, this isn't enough to keep the Phoenix from burning out. The deck had way too many flaws and inner clashes that caused the deck to be binder food and bound for duel links. All of it can be summed up in 3 points. The first issue is resources. Though the deck has synergy, it lacked the resources to manage an effective board with rituals and links together. This is also backed up by the fact that your boss monster, Nephthys' Sacred Flame, requires you to sacrifice your rituals as well, causing you, the unlucky Nephthys player, to sack your already difficult to make Cerulean, which eats up most of resources without any payoff, except a non-targetable towers. Which wasn't impressive in an era where kaijus were heavily seen play. It's already tough trying to go minus playing rituals. It's impossible to manage card advantage when you slap links into an already heavy resource mechanic. This leads to problem number 2. While the deck had synergy with its core mechanic of popping monsters, the mechanic was painfully slow. Having to wait until your next standby phase to reap the benefits always puts you behind not only in terms of advantage, but in gameplay. Decks like Goki, Sky Striker, and Burning Abyss had straightforward and less gimmicky game plans that saw immediate success. They also allowed you to put in extra engines that wouldn't clash with gameplay, like putting Dangers in Goki or Brilliant Fusion for, well, almost anything that could run it. Noted that there was some support that people tested inside Nephthys, like Incantations, a ritual supporting archetype that was seen heavy play for ritual decks that needed a boost, or Fire Kings whose support could destroy your monsters to work with. Neither of them helped, and they even operated better on their own than with Nephthys due to its slow engine. Even Fire Kings could fully operate with them, as their destruction mechanic helped pop Sacred Phoenix, and Fire King Island helped destroy their monsters in hand. It still wasn't a great fit. Fire King's graveyard mechanics are usually activated on the next standby phase, regardless of whose turn it is. It was also mainly fire-supported cards, which didn't mesh with Nephthys' wind attribute monsters. It even clashed with its gameplay since you had to ritual summon and link summon, causing you to sacrifice the destruction effects of your smaller monsters to get combo pieces on the board, which causes a lack of resources and ability to manage the card advantage we established in the first point. How's a deck supposed to operate if its mechanics don't match well with its gameplay? Sacrificing one end of your deck's gameplay to try to make the other mechanics succeed isn't a recipe for consistency. They also had to be sent to the graveyard, making them more restrictive and useless if banished. You know what also causes a lack of consistency? A lack of spell and trap card support. Outside of Rebirth, there are very few cards meant to help Nephthys directly. And by few, we mean 2. Last Hope of Nephthys is a spell card that lets you target one Nephthys card you control and one card your opponent controls and destroy them. Awakening of Nephthys is a continuous trap that gives all Nephthys monsters you control 300 plus attack. On a hard once per turn effect, if this face-up card in the spell and trap card zone is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the grave, you can special summon a Nephthys monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard, but destroy it during the end phase. Lackluster? Yes. Was it helpful? Absolutely not. They both had little to no impact on improving or helping the deck. One was a normal spell that needed your opponent to control a card, and a Nephthys card to be an effective pop, once again making you go minus on a card that isn't even a quick play, and no more than a second turn card. The other was a mediocre stat boost that needed to be popped face up to help you float into a Nephthys monster to the board. That could be feasible if it weren't for the fact that your destruction effects all happened during your turn, since none of your effects were quick effects. So yet again, you have another card that made you wait until it was your turn once again. A lack of good spell and trap card supports puts your deck in a terrible situation, pressuring you to find other alternatives to help your deck operate, and find the right combo pieces, which is way less consistent than having it built in. Sure, monsters like Chronicler and Disciple can search. However, if those get stuffed by one of the many hand traps available to players, any chances of having your established board were diminished. Eventually, this led to Nephthys being unplayable. Having the inability to generate and manage resources, mechanics that clashed with everything, including its own engine, and a lack of good spell and trap card support isn't going to do a ritual/link based archetype any good. It seemed that the archetype took all of the bad traits from the card that inspired the archetype. The deck wouldn't see any new support until a random new card was introduced to the archetype in 2020's TCG booster set Phantom Rage. The world was introduced to Conductor of Nephthys, a level 2 wind spellcaster ritual monster with 2000 attack and 0 defense. It could be ritual summoned with a Rebirth of Nephthys, and once per turn you can special summon a Nephthys ritual monster from your hand or deck, and the summon is treated as a ritual summon. It also lets you activate an effect when it's tributed or destroyed, in which case it lets you destroy up to 3 Nephthys cards, one each from your hand, deck, or field. If this card seems too perfect, that's because it isn't, because the second effect also activates during your next standby phase. It was almost too good to be true. While the first effect lets you cheat out Cerulean for your combo and helps you set up your link monsters, it's hindered once again by the fact that the effect that you'd want, the destruction effect, was a next standby phase gimmick. Having to wait for the next standby phase to pop your Nephthys targets meant you'd also have to wait until another whole turn to utilize them, because the Nephthys cards also need to make it to the next standby phase to activate. Duels can barely go past turn 4 in today's game. Expecting a deck whose mechanics are as slow as molasses to survive in a game where the formats get quicker and quicker with each new set that comes out is a no-go. Nephthys is yet another poor ritual flop. However, one game's trash is another game's treasure. Duel Links is more likely where you'll see Nephthys. Okay, more so Sacred Phoenix and Fire Kings due to the synergy of being able to destroy Sacred Phoenix and setting up backrow removal for the next turn. As for the Archetypes Duel Links performance, that was more or less the same. While it did see a few rogue tops, it didn't fix the fact that the Archetypes' flaws made it tough to play. It had a couple of variants that were played heavily in an attempt to make it viable. One of them was the Yubel variant, where you'd use your Nephthys cards or even Fire King text like Island to destroy Yubel, activating Yubel's effect to climb into Ultimate Nightmare. There was even a skill to use in My Name is Yubel, where you'd return one Yubel Terror Incarnate or Yubel the Ultimate Nightmare from your hand to your deck to add a Yubel to your hand once per turn. Is this more Yubel focused? Absolutely, but this was probably the highlight of Nephthys' gameplay, even when this deck was known as a big brick. That's as strong a case we can make for anyone trying to make Nephthys. With that, the book on Nephthys is closed. The archetype, whose playability was as harsh as spell in its name. While the premise was good and a great throwback to its predecessor, the mechanic was just too gimmicky. It wasn't possible to be effective in a deck that was heavily ritual-based, one of the most resource-eating summoning mechanics in the game. And then it made it even more strenuous by including a level 3 Link boss monster who ate up the ritual monsters you put so much effort into. It was also not the right era to play a slow-paced deck in a fast-paced meta, where multiple hand traps were and are still floating around. There was also the fact that there's little spell and trap card support, and the only one that was playable was the ritual spell. All of this adds to yet another bust at making rituals viable. Even if the deck gets more support similar to Conductor, the deck would still be in the same place. because having monsters with no way to interact with your opponent and being stuck with a gimmick where everything needs to go off during your next standby phase will keep the Nephthys stagnant. Sacred Phoenix will always have the honor of being one of the most underrated goats in the goat format, but as for its kin, they will flame out in a hall of fame. Alright, and that's the video. Are there any other archetypes you'd like us to cover in the series? Let us know down in the comments below.